Okay, today we're going to talk about Objective 1 for exit level math tax, describing functional relationships. By viewing this podcast, you'll be able to see several different problems from release tax tests that were used to test Objective 1. So basically, these are the types of problems you're going to see on the tax test in regards to Objective 1, describing functional relationships. Let's just start with number 13. An ice cream vendor made a table showing the relationship between the daily temperature and the number of ice cream cones sold per day. What is the dependent quantity in this relationship? So we're not necessarily talking about x or y. I hope that you do recall from Algebra 1 that the x values is always going to be the domain. The y values is always going to be the range. Since we neither know x nor y, we simply have to just look at the information given and determine, well, what do we know about domain and range? Well, the domain is always the independent value. The y values, or the range, is always going to be the dependent value. So if we're talking about the relationship between the daily high temperature and the number of ice cream cones sold per day, let's just think about that. If it's cold outside and snowing and rainy and wet and wind's blowing and you have to wear a jacket and hat and hoodie and all that kind of stuff, you may not want to eat ice cream, because if you eat ice cream, it's going to really cool you down even further and make you even colder. However, there may be some people that want to buy an ice cream cone on a cold day, but probably not near as many as would want to buy the ice cream cone on a hot day. So let's look at our answer choices. If we're looking for the dependent quantity in the relationship, the dependent quantity, A says the daily high temperature. So does a daily high temperature depend on how many ice cream cones are sold? B, the number of ice cream cones sold per day. Does the number of ice cream cones sold per day depend on the temperature? C, all of the data in the table, and D, cannot be determined. Well, if you think about this, kind of the way I explained it before I even started going into the answer choices, to me it's obvious that on a very hot day, more ice cream cones would be sold. So since that's the case, then the number of ice cream cones sold per day must depend on, does depend on, the daily temperature. So the answer is going to be B. The number of ice cream cones sold per day is the dependent quantity in the relationship, because the outside temperature determines how many ice cream cones you might sell. Number 37. The profit earned on the sale of tool sets can be represented as the product of the number of tool sets sold and the difference between the selling price and the cost of making each set. The selling price of each tool set is $19.95, and the cost of making each tool set is $4.37. Which equation which equation represents P, the profit, in the terms of S, the number of tools sold? So let's start by look at our answer choices. When you're taking a multiple choice examination, you want to always look at your answer choices first, because you may be dealing with fractions in a word problem and your answer choices may be in decimals, or you may be dealing with fractions in a word problem and your answer choices may be in fractions. It always tells you where you're going and kind of where you need to work toward. So let's look at our answer choices here. It looks like we have some equations set equal to P, and that's what we're talking about. The equation, which equation represents P, the profit. But I have these first two choices that looks like they can be simplified. Let's do that for the sake of easier understanding. Let's just simplify here a little bit. If I distribute here, I get P equals 19.95 S minus 4.37 S. For B, I get P equals 19.95 S plus 4.37 S. So now all four of our answer choices match, and we can see what we have going on a little bit better. So let's go back into the problem and look at some of the meat of the problem. The selling price is $19.95 a tool set. The cost of making it is $4.37 each. So in terms of S being the number of tool sets sold, if I examine the first choice tells me that I am multiplying $19.95 times each tool set sold, S, and then I'm going to subtract $4.37, the total cost for making each set. Now right off the bat, it seems to me that this is probably going to be my best answer, and so I'm going to check it, but I'm going to go through here because I always want to go through my answer choices and kind of look at them all. The next one shows me that I'm multiplying $19.95, the amount I'm selling each tool set for, times S, the number made, and then I'm going to add the cost of making it. I don't know why I would want to add the cost of making each set. That doesn't make sense. So I don't think B is going to be my answer. For C, the problem with C is that I'm not multiplying $19.95 times each set that I will sell. There's no S here. That's the difference between choice A and choice C. Choice A includes the S you multiply with. Choice C does not. And D is just backwards of choice C. It multiplies $19.95 times S, but not the cost per making each set by S. So those don't work. So the best answer is going to be A.